Meet David Chen, a 28-year-old tech entrepreneur. After selling his startup for $50 million, David faced a problem many wealthy people encounter. How do you know if someone likes you for who you are or for what you have? Tired of dating apps where women would immediately ask about his car or job, David decided to conduct a little social experiment. He would present himself as a struggling freelance graphic designer, living paycheck to paycheck. That's when he met Sarah Martinez at a local coffee shop in the Mission District. Sarah, 26, worked as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized firm. She was attractive, well-dressed, and seemed genuinely nice when David accidentally bumped into her while carrying his laptop in a worn-out messenger bag. "I'm so sorry," David said, wearing his carefully chosen poor outfit. Faded jeans with a small hole, old sneakers, and a generic hoodie. Sarah smiled politely. "No worries, it happens." They struck up a conversation about the coffee shop's Wi-Fi being down. David mentioned he was a freelance graphic designer trying to finish a project for a client who was probably going to pay me peanuts anyway. Sarah seemed interested enough to exchange numbers. Over the next 3 weeks, David and Sarah went on several dates. But David quickly noticed a pattern that made his stomach turn. Date 1. Coffee at the same shop where they met. Sarah suggested going Dutch, which David appreciated initially. However, when he pulled out a discount coupon, Sarah's smile faltered slightly. "Oh, you use coupons?" she asked, her tone shifting just enough to be noticeable. Date 2. A casual dinner at a mid-range restaurant. David deliberately chose a modest place and paid with cash, mentioning he didn't believe in credit cards because debt is scary when you're living project to project. Sarah spent most of the dinner on her phone and cut the evening short, claiming she had an early morning. Date 3. A walk in Golden Gate Park. Free activity, David thought. But Sarah seemed distracted and kept mentioning how her friend Jessica's boyfriend had just taken her to Napa Valley for the weekend. "Must be nice to have someone who can afford those kinds of experiences," she said with a sigh. The breaking point came during their 4th date. David had invited Sarah to his apartment, not his real penthouse, but a modest one-bedroom he'd rented specifically for this experiment in a working-class neighborhood. Sarah arrived and immediately began scanning the space with barely concealed disappointment. The furniture looked cheap, the TV was small, and David had deliberately left some unpaid bills visible on the counter. "This is cozy," Sarah said, her voice lacking any genuine warmth. During dinner, which David had cooked himself, another red flag in Sarah's apparent assessment, she dropped the bombshell. "David, I need to be honest with you," Sarah said, barely touching her food. "I don't think this is working out. We're at different places in our lives." "What do you mean?" David asked, genuinely curious to hear her reasoning. Sarah sighed dramatically. "Look, you're a nice guy, but I need stability. I need someone who can provide for a future family, someone with ambition. I'm not getting any younger, and I can't waste time on someone who's just getting by." She gestured around his modest apartment. "I mean, you're 28 and you're still living like a college student. When Jessica's boyfriend proposed last month, he gave her a ring that cost more than your rent. That's the kind of man I need." But Sarah wasn't done revealing her true nature, as if the universe wanted to provide the perfect test. David's phone rang during this conversation. "Sorry, 1 second," David said, stepping into the kitchen to answer. It was his friend Michael, who was in on the experiment. They'd planned this call. "Hey, man," Michael said loudly enough for Sarah to hear. "I'm downstairs with that Porsche I was telling you about. Want to take a quick look? I know you said you were interested in buying one." David played his part perfectly. "Oh, that's not mine, Sarah. That's my friend Michael. He's got money." Sarah's entire demeanor changed instantly. Her eyes lit up with an interest David hadn't seen directed at him during their entire dating period. "Your friend has a Porsche?" she asked, suddenly animated. "Yeah, Michael's the investment banker. Does pretty well for himself." "Is he single?" The question came out before Sarah could stop herself. She immediately tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. David felt a mix of disappointment and validation. His experiment had worked, but the results were more blatant than he'd expected. "Sarah, did you just ask me if my wealthy friend is single while you're breaking up with me for being poor?" Sarah's face flushed red. "That's not... I just meant..." "You meant exactly what you said," David replied calmly. "You've spent the last month making it clear that my worth as a person is tied directly to my bank account. You've been checking your phone during our dates, comparing me to other men based on what they can buy their girlfriends, and now you're literally asking about my friend because he has a nice car." Sarah stood up, defensive. "There's nothing wrong with wanting financial security. I work hard and I deserve someone who can match my ambition." "There's a difference between wanting security and being a gold digger, Sarah. You never once asked about my dreams, my goals, or what makes me happy. You only cared about what I could buy you." This is where David decided to end his experiment. "You know what, Sarah? You're right. You do deserve someone who can match your standards." David walked to his bedroom and returned with his real wallet, a Hermes leather wallet he'd hidden away. He pulled out his black American Express Centurion card and set it on the coffee table. Sarah's eyes widened. "What is that?" "That's a card you can only get if you spend over $250,000 a year and have a net worth in the millions," David said calmly. Then he pulled out his phone, not the older iPhone he'd been carrying, but the latest iPhone Pro Max. He showed her his real banking app. Sarah's jaw literally dropped as she saw the account balance: $47,382,156.80. "I sold my tech startup 2 years ago," David explained, watching Sarah's face cycle through confusion, realization, and then desperate calculation. "The old car I've been driving? It's in the shop. My real car is a Tesla Model S, but I also have a vintage Porsche 911 that I collect." Sarah's entire body language shifted. She sat back down, suddenly interested in staying. "David, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to see who you really were, and you've shown me exactly that." What happened next was perhaps the most revealing part of the entire experiment. Sarah immediately began trying to rewrite history. "David, you have to understand, I was just being practical. A girl has to protect herself. I actually really liked you, but I was scared of getting hurt." She moved closer to him on the couch. "I think we should give this another chance. I can see now that you were just being modest about your success. That's actually really attractive. A man who doesn't need to brag about his wealth." David couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Sarah, 5 minutes ago you were breaking up with me because I wasn't good enough for you. You asked if my friend was single. You literally told me I was living like a college student and that you needed a man who could provide the kind of ring Jessica got." "I was just testing you too," Sarah said desperately. "I wanted to see if you'd fight for me." The lies kept coming. Sarah spent the next 20 minutes trying to convince David that she'd actually been attracted to his humble lifestyle, that she'd been playing hard to get, that she'd always seen his potential. But the most shocking moment came when she said, "You know, I never really cared about money anyway. Some of the happiest couples I know are broke. Money doesn't buy happiness." David had to excuse himself to the bathroom just to process the complete reversal he was witnessing. When David returned, he decided to conduct one final test. "You're right, Sarah. Money doesn't buy happiness. In fact, I've been thinking about what you said earlier, and you're absolutely right. I should be more focused on building a stable future." Sarah nodded eagerly. "Exactly. I'm so glad you understand." "So I've decided to donate most of my money to charity. I want to live a simple life, just like you said I should. We could get that little apartment together, split the rent, use coupons at restaurants. What do you think?" The color drained from Sarah's face. "Wait, what? Donate your money? David, that's crazy talk. You don't need to do anything drastic." "But you just said money doesn't matter. You said you were attracted to my humble lifestyle." Sarah started stammering. Well, I mean, you should be smart about your money. You don't have to give it away. And there it was, the final confirmation that Sarah's interest was purely financial. David ended the evening by asking Sarah to leave, but the story doesn't end there. Within a week, David discovered that Sarah had been telling mutual friends a completely different version of events. According to her story, David was a liar who had trust issues and had manipulated her emotions with his fake poor act. She even posted on social media about men who play games instead of being honest about who they are. But the most shocking discovery came when David's friend Jennifer, who knew both of them, revealed that Sarah had been asking around about David's financial situation from their very first date. "She asked me if you had money," Jennifer told David. "I thought it was weird, but I figured maybe she was just curious. She specifically wanted to know what kind of car you drove and whether you owned or rented your place." Sarah had been conducting her own investigation, but unlike David's experiment in character, hers was purely mercenary. David's experiment revealed something troubling about modern dating culture. Sarah wasn't an anomaly. She represented a growing trend of people who view relationships as financial transactions rather than emotional connections. During his month of being poor, David noticed how differently he was treated not just by Sarah, but by society in general. Servers were less attentive, other women showed less interest, and even some of his male acquaintances seemed to lose respect for him. "It made me realize how much of our social value is tied to our perceived economic status," David reflected. "People were literally treating me as less of a person because they thought I had less money." Psychologists explain that Sarah's behavior, while morally questionable, stems from deep-seated fears about security and social status. Dr. Maria Rodriguez, a relationship counselor, notes that economic anxiety can drive people to make relationship decisions based purely on financial considerations. Some people genuinely believe that love without financial security is naive, Dr. Rodriguez explains. They've been taught that money equals safety, and safety equals love. But she also notes that healthy relationships require genuine connection. If someone is only interested in you when they discover your wealth, that's not love. That's a business transaction. 6 months later, David reflected on his experiment and its aftermath. "I learned that my money was attracting the wrong kind of person," he said. "But I also learned that there are people out there who genuinely don't care about wealth. I just had to find them." David eventually met his current girlfriend, Maria, at a volunteer event where they were both serving meals to homeless individuals. She knew nothing about his financial status for 3 months, and when she finally learned about his wealth, her reaction was vastly different from Sarah's. "She asked me if I was happy with my success, not what I could buy her," David said. "That's when I knew I'd found someone real." When David shared his story on social media, it quickly went viral. Thousands of people shared their own experiences with gold diggers and fake friends who only appeared when money was involved. David's experience offers valuable lessons for anyone trying to distinguish between someone who values financial stability and someone who only values money. Here are the red flags: asking about your job, car, or living situation within the first few conversations, showing disinterest when they perceive you as having less money, constantly comparing you to others based on material possessions, being too busy for free or low-cost activities, sudden interest when wealth is revealed. And here are the green flags: interest in your personality, goals, and values, regardless of financial status. Willingness to engage in activities that don't cost money. Consistent treatment whether they think you're rich or poor. Questions about your happiness and fulfillment, not just your success. David's story serves as a powerful reminder that authentic relationships are built on genuine connection, not financial transactions. While Sarah thought she was being practical, she actually revealed herself to be someone incapable of true love, because real love isn't conditional on a bank account balance. The most shocking part of this story isn't that Sarah was a gold digger, it's how quickly and completely she was willing to rewrite reality when the situation changed. Her inability to maintain consistent values or genuine interest revealed a character flaw that went far deeper than simple materialism. For David, the $500 he spent on his poor person experiment was the best money he ever invested. It saved him from potentially years of a fake relationship with someone who saw him as a wallet rather than a person. And for Sarah, she's still single, still looking for her rich Prince Charming, and still wondering why she can't find genuine love. The truth is, you can't find what you're not willing to give. This story serves as a reminder that genuine relationships are built on mutual respect, shared values, and authentic connection, not the size of someone's bank account. While financial compatibility is important in long-term relationships, it should never be the primary factor in determining someone's worth as a partner. What would you have done if you were in David's shoes? Do you think he was too harsh? Or did Sarah get exactly what she deserved? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If this story made you think twice about love, loyalty, and gold diggers, smash that like button, subscribe for more real-life shockers, and share this video with someone who needs to see what true intentions really look like. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell, because the next story? It's even crazier.